Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Diverse Talk Matters. To talk about different things around diversity, equity, inclusion, talk about things that people may find challenges with, so we hope you find them really useful. Some are around people's different lived experiences, some really challenging conversation, things that sometimes we don't need to talk about. But we really hope you enjoy the range of topics that we are introducing to you or bringing to you, to your homes, to your house, to your workplaces. We hope you enjoy.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Diverse Talk Matters, the podcast by the consultancy Diverse Matters. So today we're going to be talking all things deaf inclusion and deaf equity. My name is Natasha Bloomfield-Reid. I'm the CEO and founder of Diverse Matters. Got a brilliant guest I'm going to introduce you shortly. So just a little information. For those who are listening to the audio version, you're going to be hearing the lovely Simon's voice, who's interpreting. But it's Jess who is going to be talking to us and telling us all about what she's doing in her work, how organisations can enhance equity. You'll be hearing her explanations, what she's got to say. So without further ado, over to you. So can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work at Assigned Solutions and anything else you want to tell us right now?
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for introducing Simon, just to make it clear that he is interpreting for me, because otherwise it'll get a bit confusing to identify as female, but with a male voice. So I'm definitely happy to have this opportunity and this platform, hopefully to improve people's awareness on how to work with deaf people. So yeah, hopefully this will be useful. I'm really quite positive about that. So I'm Jess Reynolds. I work for Assigned Solutions as their media and social media manager. And I'm here to provide some awareness about our services, things that we provide. So it's not just interpreters that we provide, but there's a whole host of other things that we talk about. And I'm here to talk about that and making sure that the content is accessible for BSL users. Assigned Solutions was set back up in 1998. We provide face-to-face interpreters. That was what we did for a long time. Then obviously with the advent of video interpreting, we also provide translations. We translate documents into video, BSL video, and lots of other services as well.
Brilliant. I can recommend Assigned Solutions for anyone out there. So when we do talk about the different communication support and other things around deaf equity, you can go to Assigned Solutions. Look there for you, Jess. Love it. Right.
Yeah, very useful. Thank you.
Listen, you've got to be done. So as we said, this session is going to be really about deaf inclusion in the workplace and also in service delivery, and looking at how organisations can be equitable. Because I'm quite passionate about the deaf community. Just from a personal level, years ago, it was a really silly thing, but I watched a film, Children of a Lesser God, when I was a kid, and I actually learned BSL when I was 16 first. Didn't do it for a while and then went back again when I was, just before I had my child. So I was saying to Simon earlier before he joined Jess, I'm an embarrassment. I went up to level 3 and I've probably forgotten most of it now. So I need to get back into doing sign. So this is really good for me to get a bit of practice in and watch you sign. But I know, as a person who's worked in service delivery, that deaf people can be missed out completely in terms of equity, in terms of getting translators, getting support. There's lots of work now being done, whether it's in health or other services, to try and sort of bridge that gap. So Sign Health, for example, did some research, and they said that only 1 in 10 people with communication needs to have equitable access. The whole thing around the barriers for communications, which is why we need services like Assigned Solutions. And some people, might not be even going to access because of those barriers. They might think, God, if I can't get an interpreter, if I can't get in support for my communication, why am I bothering? So the whole thing is, needs to be improved. There's been a greater awareness over the last few years in terms of deaf equity, but so much more needs to be done. So Is there anything, you can say about how can we raise awareness about these issues around deaf inclusion? What's needed?
Nice to meet the cat, Simon, as well. I just seen the cat.
Hello,
I saw Simon trying just to keep a straight face there for the cat jumped on it. Because I'd mentioned you hear the bell. Yeah, unfortunately, there's still issues. Things have improved an awful lot. Awareness has improved. More deaf people have been involved in mainstream television and media, and that's certainly helped our community more recently. I think Science Solutions and myself, we feel that people need to read up on how you support deaf employees. Just Google, deaf awareness. It's not difficult to do, and you will get information. Science Solutions will be one of the organisations that come up if you do that, and employees and employers who want to be diverse, who want to be disability confident, can also contact us, and we can advise them on how to make their recruitment policies accessible, what to do. Basically, when recruiting deaf people and bringing deaf people into the organisation, we can provide, as you say, interpreters. As you say, people do. They think, oh, if I'm not going to get an interpreter, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Going into a service. But just by Googling something, you can start to get information about maybe access to work and the system there that's available for people to be paid a allowance that gets their access requirements needed. So that the company themselves doesn't have to pay for that. People think that often that they have to pay extra because they've got a deaf or disabled member of staff. It's not the case. Also asking people what they need.
Yeah.
They may not use BSL. I mean, deaf people are all different. We're not all one homogenous group. Every deaf person is different. We've all got sort of different communication styles and preferences. Some, organisations provide maybe chat function or a text function that they can text to and send messages to, and that might be good for somebody else. Somebody else may want, interpreters live function so that they can use sign language to access the community. So the more options they are, I think a lot of deaf people, like to have options. Sometimes I like to use text. Quite happy and quite comfortable in written English myself, so that's fine. I don't mind doing that. Other people may just only want to use sign language, so it's basically finding and researching and reading up.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to work out and to find out what services are available out there.
No, definitely. And in terms of what you said, exactly, it's not one communication is not going to work for all. You mentioned, BSL, British Sign Language. You mentioned live interpreters live. So I'll just explain for those who don't know. Interpreters live is a remote relay interpreting, isn't it? Where you've got the video, where you can go straight through somebody who can interpret for someone. Do you want to give a little explanation of interpreters live? Because we know what it is, but other people might not.
Of course, yeah, sure. I love how you know a lot about the service already, thank you. So Interpreters Live, yes, is our app, our system under Science Solutions. You can download it on your phone or onto the computer, and you can get on-demand BSL interpretation as a directory that we have that is accessible, shows the organisations, the charities, the companies that are accessible through Interpreters Live. So you can go through the directory, and deaf people then can have free interpreters call that company. So somebody will come up on the screen, and they'll be able to sign and phone the company that they want and speak to the company that they want through sign language. Access to work budget can be used as well to cover costs. So for my job, I use video interpreting as well, sort of an on-demand service to cover what I need, and it's available, around the clock. And access to work will cover that. Then there's VRI, which is a similar kind of thing. But if I were to go into maybe, I don't know, the reception desk at a phone shop, perhaps, and say, "Oh, I'm deaf," they may have a tablet that they can contact the interpreter on, and I can then be in the shop with the hearing person and be able to access the services there through the interpreter online. So there's a lot of demand on that. The technology now is becoming much better. So the VRI, the VRS service, COVID helped that a lot, push that forward because people were locked in their homes and we couldn't go out, and it became a way of life for us to use BSL. And now we've got the BSL Act. People are starting to realise that actually the law now is starting to say that you have to provide these things as an option for deaf people to be able to access those services. So there's a lot more understanding happening, and things are improving.
So much better because, people awful things like COVID broadened accessibility for deaf people, because before COVID, and you know better than me, if somebody wanted to hire or recover an invalidator, you might have had them in person, and then you have to have them for a certain amount of time, but now it's instant. It's so much better that you can get communication support literally at the touch of a button, and it's making things easier. So there's no real excuse out there for organisations not to be looking at that, because it's so easy now. And like you said, Jess, come on, we've got Google. Look out there what you should be doing, because I work with lots of organisations across lots of sectors, and they're all lovely people and they really want to do better. But I'd say the majority of them do not even consider deaf inclusion. They've not thought about it. If I say, oh, you've got a preferred interpreting organisation, if you want to go back to what communication support, sadly a lot of them don't, and they don't consider it. So hopefully now with the BSL Act, which we'll talk about as well as in a moment, it will improve things. So for me, when I worked in an organisation, we actually created a leaflet that said, when we knew someone was deaf, what was your preferred type of communication? And then they could let us know that type of communication, whether it was VSL, whether it was a note taker, whether it was lip speaking. All those things are not hard to implement. And if you get them in properly and let your team know, hello, you're there. Do you know what I mean? So it's about raising awareness as well, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, as you said, there is no excuse really. People are full of excuses and have been full of excuses. Yeah. If I've been let down or things like that, interpreters haven't been there. I'll try and find out what's going on. And people say, "Oh, we haven't got the money. We don't know about the budget, and where would we get that from? We didn't know there was these services." You don't need to know sign language. You just need to know that interpreters are available and these are the services available.
Exactly.
And if you're unsure of things, ask.
Exactly.
That there is access to work available to cover services for an employee. So it does get very frustrating. But thankfully, through all of this, Science Solutions, really our aim is to make those barriers come down and make communication much more accessible.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we'll get there.
We will. We've definitely got it better. I mean, as a hearing person who's just passionate about the deaf community, I'm like, oh my god. Thankfully, we are seeing slight gains. Tell us a little bit about the BSL Act then. I don't want to put you on the spot, Jeff, but tell us about the Act. It's quite recent, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't go into it in any great depth. It's law, but I think last year finally we got the Act that basically says that services should be accessible to deaf people in their preferred language. That's
brilliant.
And other than that, they should be discriminated against. BSL is a language in its own right. It is a language. It's not just people playing around. They're not just thinking, no, you just write something down. Deaf people can read it instead. As I said earlier, everybody's different. People who use BSL as their only language. Somebody their English, their written English would be a second or third language.
Exactly.
Their average reading age can be a lot lower than people think it would be. So that's why just writing something down isn't always acceptable and possible. So I think this all comes in under the Act, basically making your services accessible, and that's why people are starting to understand now that BSL is its own language. It's not English structure, English syntax with sign language on top. Sign language is its own language, its own grammar, its own syntax. And for deaf people, for hearing people who've never met a deaf person before, it may not come naturally to them. But yeah, basically, people should just look into it and find out exactly what the BSL Act is. It is now law.
Yeah. And even before the BSL Act, we have the Equality Act. And what, service providers and employees, I mean, it's good we've got strength with the BSL, which is brilliant. But even with the Equality Act, as a part of the Act, we need to make sure you're providing a quality of opportunity. That can be the workplace, that can be service delivery. We need to make sure we're providing, we're reducing any discrimination, eliminating, in fact, it says in the Act, discrimination, and fostering good relations. And I think, wow, a lot of organisations weren't even doing that. And again, I don't want to be here to be negative about organisations. I always say it's about what you don't know what you don't know. Because if people haven't had an awareness, or people around them who may be deaf, they're not going to know any different. But it's for all organisations to go, how can we provide a service equitably for all?
Yeah, as I was just saying before, it's the Equality Act, is there, but a lot of people don't always follow it. I think it's one of those things.
Yeah.
They think they can possibly get away with. A few years ago, you apply for a job, and they say, they have an equalities form maybe which you might tick in.
Yeah.
And they say any support that you might need for an interview. And I think maybe they think because they've done this equalities form that therefore they are equal.
Yeah.
And I think that's all they think that's all they need to do. But there's a lot more to it than that. And giving me the chance to come to an interview, providing me with an interpreter at that interview.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than just simply just ticking a box. Well done, we've done it. We've achieved equality.
Exactly.
So it's a whole process but we will get there.
And people are learning it, and it's also about not making assumptions. You said earlier on, different people have different needs. Somebody may have had somebody within the organisation or somebody they deliver services to, and they wanted one thing. Does it mean the next deaf person is going to need that? And again, it's that not making assumptions about what deaf people want or can do. That thing around, there's even a thing called communication discrimination. It's being discriminated about, where historically that access wasn't there as well. So it's making sure that they, people know that really.
Yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned employers, and we're going to talk a little about what employers can do. You've mentioned a little bit, and I'll probably delve into it a little bit more about access to work and things like that, what you've already said. But I've got a report here, Royal Association for Deaf People, and there is a report that said that 63% of deaf people reported they've not been given equal opportunities at work. 83% felt excluded in conversations with colleagues. 69% felt lonely in work, and 59% felt left out at events. And even if you go before employers and people at university, again, the stories of people.
I'm surprised it's not higher than that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And even when it comes to, even at university, before they've even got a job, there's barriers to getting communication support often as well. So it can be barriers all the way through to the workplace. So bearing that in mind, what do you think are the myths? So I think there must be some myths out there about, it's difficult to hire a deaf person. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, to be honest, unfortunately, a lot of people do think that deaf people are probably stupid. They're lesser than, they can't hear, so they can't think. We can't learn. That is, all my life, I think I've always felt that people have treated me like I've got additional needs.
Yeah, I can imagine.
My English is good. I can write well. I can read well, but I can't speak. My voice is not not understandable. So a lot of times when I meet people, I mean, I'll always try and speak. They've got deaf awareness, like, you know, obviously I have to try and be aware of them as well and try and get communication. It's a two-way street. So I will try, but obviously they will understand. My voice sounds very different to anything that they're used to.
Yeah.
But then when I write something, they look, confused, because I can write something down and they think, oh, okay. So they generally look confused. I think they assume that because I can't speak and that I've got this deaf voice that I'm not going to be able to write. I'm from school. I went to a deaf school, but then we had day trips out, you know, with like hearing pupils from one of the other schools, and they'd make fun of sign language. They, you know, do monkey signs and things like that, and it was just like. And then when I got to university, okay, I had my interpreters in the class, but as soon as the class finished, the interpreter left. So lunch break, I didn't have the support or didn't have anybody to speak to me. And there were one group of people, like, you know, they were lovely, and they really did try and include me. But of course, they were speaking and they were eating, and I didn't have a clue what they were saying. So I did feel quite lonely. They were nice, they tried, but I had no communication with them, couldn't speak to them. And then when I got my degree, it was all like, oh, well done, you did it. And I'm like, well, I've been here for 3 years. I've done the same course as you. It's no more well done me, it's well done you. And then work interviews, getting a job. It was one time I sort of did a round one interview where there was no meeting a person, it was just all written tests and things like that for a logistics job, I think it was. I got through that. I said, okay, you passed, okay, you're in the second round now. So I went. They were like, oh, you're deaf? I went, yeah, I'm deaf. And they gave me another test, and then they said I passed. And the third round then was to meet somebody different who didn't realise obviously hadn't realised I was deaf. But I think they must have said to them, because I passed all these tests, but then it was kind of like I got ignored. It was quite obviously then that they were afraid of taking me any further. So this idea that deaf people, you know, are less than or unable to do things, or that we're expensive, or we're hard to train. How do I train somebody that's deaf that I can't speak to? How do I make sure that their communication matches, or whatever this, you know, this is, whether it's BSL or SSE or written text or captions or. So SSE is Sign Supported English, just to say. It's more sort of, it's using the signs of BSL, but more in a word-for-word order. So there's lots of different ways, and it's not expensive to employ a deaf person. It's not different to employing a hearing person. Access to work will cover interpreters. If they've got, you know, their CV matches, they've got the skills. Yeah, making sure that communication is there, that's all you need to worry about. But as I say, access to work will cover that.
Yeah, and we definitely define these myths. Like we said, with, you know, if you were a service user, the same thing when you are being recruited. You have to be asking at all stages, does anybody need an adjustment, which we'll talk about shortly. You should be asking them, and when they start, what's the best communication support. If employers were prepared and did that early on, we would have, stop a lot of these issues. Because, and again, sometimes people have a fear. Oh, what if? No, ask people what they need, and it's quite easy to implement. People sometimes think
it can be as simple as that. Just asking what I need. And, you know, obviously contact a company like Sign Solutions that can provide these sorts of services and can give you the information, and being aware about making sure your recruitment is fair, and if you want the disability confidence mark as well, you know, we can be there as a company to support other companies to get that and make sure that they're accessible.
No, definitely. So in terms of a couple of things you said there, so I thought, right, so there's sign language, BSL, and then there's SSE. Now, you explained, I'm just saying for the people who were, watching or listening to the podcast. So British Sign Language, and I think people don't often understand, and you've said that in a sort of way that you may not, how we speak and how we might grammatically say something is different in BSL, isn't it? So it might not be how we would explain it. The whole grammar, which is why it's really important that people learn about the deaf community. They might think, why has somebody written something like that? But like you said, just to reiterate, SFC, sign supporting, it's like you said, they'll probably interpret it exactly how I'm talking now. Is that right? Explanation. Perfect.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
And then you also mentioned disability confidence scheme, which is worth mentioning as well and giving a bit more detail. So disability confidence scheme is a scheme that superseded, used to be called the 2-tick disability, possibly 2-tick, you might have seen that. And it's a governmental scheme which works to support disabled people in the workplace. And it's really, really good. You have different levels. You have disability confidence committed, employer and leader. And it's just a way of really encouraging and for employers to get on the case and make sure they're inclusive in all their practices, isn't it? And like you said, science students can help you if you need support with that, but it just makes sure you're looking at things like adjustment. You're looking at, can you give somebody work experience? You're looking at what's a really good organisation do, inclusive, so for deaf and disabled people. So in the Equality Act, when I said sort of what it was about and what we should be doing, also organisations should be anticipatory, not and proactive, not thinking, oh my gosh, I've got a deaf person, what am I going to do? But actually thinking, preparing and being aware, this is what I need to do if anybody with any sort of need comes forward. And so the Disabilities Confidence Scheme, anybody listening, any organisations who don't know much about it, do look it up. And it's definitely worth doing. What I would say with any of these campaigns and accreditations, if you're doing it, put the time and resource and don't do it as a tick box. Because I do get a little bit of a feeling sometimes when some people have with disability confidence, I'm like, how really are they? So please do it properly and make sure when you're looking at disability, you're looking at the breadth and the of disability, which includes deaf inclusion and everything else that needs to talk, in that. Because some people might look at other aspects of disability and not, deaf inclusion, which is also needed. What examples of adjustments could an organisation put in place, Jess, if somebody was there? I know we go by, be led by the person every time, but just to give people an idea.
So access to work probably is worth talking about. That's the government fund as well that would fund a deaf person to have an interpreter in an interview or whatever communication support they would need within that interview. And then when they've got the job for providing interpreters or caption or whatever they'll need in order to access work and to access training. So policies again can be translated into BSL. Obviously, a lot of legal talk, obviously in policies, so you can get those translated into BSL. That allows that deaf person to access it in their first language. It just makes that language clear as well. So quite often as well, making things simple. So having toolbars that you can change your access, you'll change the access requirements of maybe a web page or something, so it's simple English, and then that helps people maybe with autism or with sensory overload or anybody that second language users, and access to work can provide a lot of those costs if you've got deaf staff. So it's not just about interpreters; it's also about equipment. Maybe if I were to be that hard of hearing as opposed to being deaf. I may need some equipment to make things louder or put a loop system in for a hearing aid. Access to work can help to cover that as well. So, but it's all those sorts of things that you can do to help people.
Brilliant. You can even have things that flash, can't you? You can have things that can flash in an office. So whether it's a lighting for emergency, light for telephone, like you said before, instant messaging and texting. If people prefer that to the phone. Even things like, and this is for, I'd say, good inclusion anyway, like sending things in advance. Like if you've got a meeting, send the agenda in advance, not just going, here's the meeting, and allowing things like flexible working.
Allowing preparation. I mean, even now in my job, if I'm trying to communicate with other clients, maybe they've got a lack of awareness, they'll say, "Oh, can we have a meeting now?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, I need to get an interpreter arranged. It can't be now." And also, I need to think about how long it'll be, for how many interpreters I may need. And then sometimes you get the attitude, "Oh, if we can't do it now, then what's the point?" So it's about educating and trying to get that education in before, so they're a bit more aware of it. So they'll work alongside and work with, maybe alongside companies like Design Solutions, so they are a bit more prepared and have a little bit more knowledge before they start working with deaf people. I'm quite happy if I've got interpreters live, then I'm all right. I can have a meeting straight away. But if the interpreter's not prepared, then it comes across like I'm not prepared as well. So
exactly.
Preparing the interpreter and just trying to set a bit of a package. Really, we can provide a package of like sort of deaf awareness that can cover things. But deaf customers walking in and how you deal with that, deaf clients, what you do. So sort of an induction packet as well, induction training, and Design Solutions can be involved in that. We can do sort of remote training, or we can come to your office and do group training to staff. So it's about awareness.
Yeah, and it'd be great if there was if there was greater awareness around deaf inclusion. It's getting better. Like I say, I know there's been talk about more talk about doing BSL in schools, teaching it. I think it should be taught like a spoken language. Get it on the agenda, get it as GCSE, get it sorted, please. Learners in control.
Yeah, definitely, please.
Oh, I tell you, get on with it already. Right.
Yeah.
And one thing I heard, really, really good, I was doing a session with an organisation, and we were talking about increased recruitment, and I loved this idea. They said that they were aware of when somebody has an interview and they'll say, "Can you fill in this application form?" And they said to them, you can do the application any way that you feel comfortable. And the person, BSL was their first language, and they signed in their application. And I'm like, more of that, please. Why shouldn't they be allowed to do that? That's equity.
Yeah, definitely, that's perfect. That's
I love that.
Of, it's like I said earlier, people think if I've got maybe a form, my English isn't great, then I'll get judged on how good my English is. Oh, they can't do that. They're not going to be able to do that in the job. But BSL, if you think, as our first language, if you think of somebody that maybe had come over from abroad and English is their second or third language, you wouldn't question their ability or their intellect because of that. You just say, "Oh, it's their second or third language." So obviously, for BSL users, that's the same. And have been able to access things in BSL, been able to feedback in BSL, to answer their queries in BSL.
Definitely.
That's great. We do that as part of when we ask for feedback, people can just send in videos rather than fill in a form. Or they can send us letters in BSL or emails in BSL rather than having to do that.
Definitely. And there's also there's lots more awareness, which is really good in terms of like Ailing Ellis. I always get a name wrong. Was on Strictly. Rose Ailing Ellis. Get it right, Tash.
Rose, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Rose has done so much for raising awareness, but there's so much out there now. If you go onto any TV platform now, there'll be something about deaf inclusion, I would imagine. There was a John Bishop documentary about him and his son. There's Rose Ailing Ellis. There's so much out there. So I would say now there is no excuse. So anybody out there who is watching or listening to this podcast and you want to know more...
And the baker at the moment, there's the Great British Bake Off.
Yes, Tasha. My namesake, Jess, is on there.
Yeah, so she's on there, but it's just things like that. Just raises awareness on mainstream media that deaf people are out there and they are doing these things, and I hope long may it continue. I just hope it's not a trend, if you like, that people sort of, it's been done now, and then it moves on to something else.
Yeah.
So we've ticked that box. We've done that for 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
As I say, we provide deaf awareness. We provide these things that people should do. But it's not just like you do it once and then that's it. You've ticked the box, now let's move on. It's an ongoing, continual thing that people have to do. And it's brilliant that it's all there. I just hope it, as I say, I hope it continues. It's been nice for me the last couple of years. See, a couple of times I've gone to shops and people have said thank you, and they've used the sign for thank you, because if you remember, Johnny and Rose were signing thank you at the end of their thing and clapping with a raised hand. So it's been nice to see just that little thing of somebody signing thank you rather than just saying thank you. That means a lot. It's nice. It just means I'm seen. So more of that. It's not, just about thinking about employees and customers, but just making people feel included and inclusive and just seen and not being invisible. Got a little bit off the point, but I think that's one thing. Don't treat us like we are invisible, I suppose. Especially if I'm with somebody that's hearing. What does she want? What does she need? Well, look at me and ask me. Don't ask them. Just because it's easy for you to communicate with them. I am here. I do have eyes. I can't see you. It's just my ears that don't work. So yeah, don't treat deaf staff like they're invisible. You see them in the lunch hall or canteen or something. Think about how it feels if you walk away and go and sit somewhere else because you're afraid of talking to them or you're nervous about talking to them. Other people then do the same thing, and eventually that person's really quite ostracized. So I was thinking of them at the same time. What can I do to make you feel more included? What can I do to make you feel more welcome? I think, and don't be scared of us. We're not frightening. I think people just think sometimes, it's like rabbit in a headlight. They don't know what to do, and it's almost like I'm not an alien. I've not got 3 heads. And just, how would it feel if the boot was on the other foot, sort of thing? Just think about that.
Exactly. And I think, like you said, I'm going to echo and urge. It's not a tick box. You don't just do it like you said because it's made a bit more high profile now. People need to think about deaf inclusion in all of their work around disability inclusion and wider, and keep going, because as year and year goes on, there's going to be more things we can do to be inclusive. It's not just one-off. And we have things like Deaf Awareness Week and sign. I think is it one interpreted sign language week and things like that. And I think, in May, isn't it, Deaf Awareness Week? Yeah. And I think they're a good opportunity to do. You could be doing it anyway, but to highlight, you might want to do a focus. But like you said, Jess, don't just do. We've done something Deaf Awareness Week and that's it. It's what else are you doing all the way through?
Yeah, Science Solutions, I think it was last week within our meetings, we were talking about Deaf Awareness Week coming up.
Okay.
Because we know that we'll get lots more queries and inquiries about how we can support people for Deaf Awareness Week. And sometimes it's like, well, they're not really deaf aware.
Yeah.
But they're just coming to us because it's Deaf Awareness Week, and it's just like, okay. But why aren't you asking us the rest of the year? If you actually care, like you say you care, why are you waiting for that particular week? It's a busy month before that in May, because we get so many inquiries, last minute things. People think, but we'd like to see that throughout the year. People care like they say they do. Like Gay Pride Month, for example, as well. Quite often, people, shops and everything, will just shove a rainbow flag on absolutely everything. And then at the end of the month, it disappears, and then everybody forgets about it then. You'll just see this sad little flag just left that somebody's forgotten to take it down. But that's kind of it for the rest of the year. Good that there is Deaf Awareness Week. It does help. Better than there not being anything at all. But it needs to be all year round.
Definitely. And I think if anybody, is either watching or listening to this podcast, it's about having a plan in place. And like I say, we talked about this. What action planning have they got in place for whether it's an employment or service delivery? What actions can they do? So not just doing a one-off thing, whether it's for creating guidance for staff about if you're either recruiting people to make sure you're equitable for all, whether it's as a service user, how are you making sure that you are supporting everybody who's deaf that comes to you? For example, when I was at organisation, we created a document, a guidance for people how to work with interpreters, how to, you've got somebody who's deaf, this is the steps that you take, that you can take. But it's things that you are doing to help others, and it's about, okay, what can I do to remove any barriers? Like, I remember Sign Solutions, where I used to work, you did some videos for us on our website, where key information, not every single thing, but key information was in BSL, so they directly could see the information, and they knew anything else we could provide BSL interpretation or any other communication support. So for those who are thinking, oh my God, this is a bit too much for me, one, you could be doing it anyway, because you've got the Equality Act, the BSL Act, but, morally, as well as, as a business case, just think about the steps you can take. And if you don't know, seek expertise. There's lots of organisations, whether it's Sign Solutions, RNID, Action on Hearing Loss, whatever they are, who can give you the guidance and get the support in place. Like I said, there's no excuse. So please, anybody, I urge you, if you're, today to go, look, what can I do to put those things in place? And do it properly, do it in a timed way that's going to make sure it makes an impact, not just, I've quickly done this, and it then doesn't really work for anybody. It's one of the things that people I think it's too much work. I think you said that earlier, Jess. Oh, it's too much, but it's not actually. And it makes it better for everybody. When you are more equitable for deaf and hard of hearing people, you're more equitable as an organisation, full stop. And you mentioned people who might be neurodiverse. So things like, I learned when I was doing BSL, even in terms of environment's really important, isn't it? When you're translating, or to make sure that the environment is one where there's not going to be distractions, all those sort of things which people don't think about, do they, when they're working or supporting deaf people? So it's just do your homework and see what needs to be done.
Yeah. There is no excuse. It's just, otherwise it's just being lazy. If you think, oh, I've not met a deaf person, so there's a very low chance I will, so I'm not going to do anything about it. We'll be all right if it happens. That's not the attitude to take. Obviously, as you said, you've got that moral duty, depending on the person and how they think. Obviously, some people just don't have that, but why would you not want
Exactly.
to be inclusive for everybody? No, mental health. I've gone through sort of mental health struggles, deafness, trying to get access to mental health services. And they say, oh, you bring a family member so we can talk, we can make an assessment. And I'm like, oh no, I need an interpreter. They're like, oh, don't know how to do it, we're unsure. And I'm like, okay. So you're asking me now to go maybe to say somebody like Sign Solutions and say help. And it's part of an NHS service, so they should have more awareness anyway. But it's like then delays, so we have to get a delay because they don't know what they're doing. So my support, my treatment, everything else gets delayed. And they may then say, okay, you need group therapy. Okay, great. All right, and we've got that in 2 weeks. And I'm like, is there an interpreter booked? Hang on 1 second. And then a week later, it wasn't a second at all. It was, I said, oh, I've not heard anything back. Then, unfortunately, we can't provide an interpreter for groups, only on a one-to-one counselling basis. And I'm, well, why? Oh, because of funding, and it's the evening hours and out-of-hours service. We can only be able to afford it in the daytime. The groups are in the evening. And it's a bit like, oh, well, okay. Just look at our resources on the website. But there's nothing in BSL. I mean, as I said before, okay, I can read English, so I had some benefit from that. But what about those people that would have no access to that in English? And I'm not allowed then to go into group therapy. If I said, oh, I could bring my mum, but they then refuse that anyway. So it's, yeah, there's so many. Just people are clueless sometimes, and they use funding. I think, well, you use your funding in other ways for other things, so why can't a little bit of funding be allocated to me? But there we go.
Yeah. Honestly, all I'm doing when you're talking, Jeff, and shaking my head with, is just getting a go, oh my God, come on now. Because it's like anybody, if you need help, you need to get treatment, you simply have to do it like anybody else. Those barriers should not be there at all. Let's hope that all this work that's going on will really make a difference. I'm going to ask probably one of my last questions now. It's time always flies by, doesn't it? I can't believe we've already, how much we've been talking about and discussing already. But some people often ask me about, you'll sometimes see when people write death a big D and little d, and people talk about the big D and the little d. Can you give a little explanation of what that is, please?
I'll try and be brief. I think sometimes that's a little bit more sensitive because people are a bit like, I don't know, it's almost not fair to the deaf person say, are you big D or little d? They may feel then that they need to put themselves in a certain box. It could make them feel that they're too deaf, that they're not deaf enough because they're more oral. But basically that is the C. So big D would be somebody who's maybe generationally deaf or come from a deaf family. They've been in the community, use sign language. They may be in the deaf football team. They're culturally deaf. They go to the deaf club. They're part of that sort of real deaf community. And then small d are those that possibly have been mainstreamed, who live in the hearing world, who use written English, who may use a bit of SSE, who may sign. But deaf community would sometimes say that people with implants, cochlear implants, which is if like a device that is implanted into the head to make certain sounds more. Somebody would say that they make them hearing because it's such a powerful thing and it's such a big help. It helps people's speech. Obviously, it doesn't make them hearing at all. It's just an aid. It's just a different type of hearing aid. But things sometimes then they go, okay, they become from big D to little d because they've taken on a cochlear implant. And for me, we're just deaf. We're just everybody's deaf.
Yeah.
There's different levels of deafness and different communication styles. All right, okay, one person was born deaf, another person's lost their hearing over a period of time. But yes, so that's the distinguishing, if you like. But it's a little bit sensitive, probably.
I totally understand that. Absolutely. And like I say, everybody identifies how they want to identify, don't they? And we shouldn't be putting it on them how we want to identify. But I know that some people might ask and go, why is there a little d and a big D? But absolutely, we're all different and we all have our own perspective.
Yeah, it started to be a bit more thing that always is something that we should drop and just go back to as it always was, just deaf.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still around. But that's what it means. Big D, sort of culturally deaf, small d, not. And the more aware you are, if you've got BSL Zone, like the deaf programs, deaf documentaries produced by deaf people and by deaf teams, that was another place that you can get lots of information. There's some comedy, there's some drama, there's some documentaries, as I say. And you can get a lot of information from that you'll learn. And if you're learning sign language, you can use that as well to improve your signs, because you can see the subtitles and see the signs and try and link them yourself. So rather than just using Google, if you want to watch something that's actually made by deaf people for deaf people, BBC See Here is another option as well. So that you just watch the deaf programming, it'll all give you a bit more awareness. And then if you watch meet a deaf person or start to work with a deaf person, I'd recommend you start looking at some of the deaf cultural content that's out there. I mean, there are still a couple of deaf clubs around as well that do sign language classes. So that's certainly a little bit aside is better than none at all. Asking your employer to maybe provide you, as your personal / professional development to go into level 1, something like that. These things can all help. Every little help.
No, definitely. When I was working in the service delivery organisation, I did that, and we trained all the staff in BSL level 1. This is a starting, because even if they can finger spell, even if they can, like you say, the hellos, the thank you, how can I support you, all those types of things, where
that makes a huge
basic
difference.
things. Yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah, it just shows you're making an effort, and I think people just appreciate that you've made an effort. Somebody may come up to me in the street, and they'll try finger spell something, and I'm like, okay, I appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
I've been seeing. So
brilliant.
it's all good. It's all good.
Thank you so much, Jess. We are now drawing to a close because, like I say, the time just flies by. I'm ending a few of these podcasts, but every time I'm like, oh, we've got loads of time, and then the time draws to an end. So thank you so much. It's been brilliant to get to know you, brilliant to find out about how organisations, whether it's a service provider or as an employer, what they can do to be more equitable. We know that we could have probably been here another hour and said lots more things. So what Jess has said so far, please do more research because there's more out there. There's only so much we can fit into a podcast time. Do go and do your research. Do go and look up Sign to Life Solutions, put my teeth in again. And thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll be at our website. Has got a blog as well. We put a blog every month. So again, it gives you different tips and things that you can look at, and some of it is disability awareness as well. So read those and think about how you could achieve these things. And there's links then to resources and things that you can learn. So yeah, there's loads of information out there if you look and ask the deaf person. We are the experts. We've got the lived experience, so do please ask it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Jess. This is the end of our podcast. We hope you enjoyed and tune in next time. Thanks all.
Thank you. I hope to see you again. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Please do spread the word about our channel and tune in for our next episode.